Stop. You haven't subscribed to the channel yet. Subscribe now. We have new stories every day. Now, let's go. The autumn sun cast long shadows through the living room windows of the suburban home John had worked so hard to provide for his family. His calloused fingers wrapped around a coffee mug that had long since gone cold. His eyes fixed on the family portrait hanging above the fireplace. The photograph, taken just a year ago, showed smiles that now felt like relics of a different era. William stood proud in his baseball uniform, and Emma clutched her favorite stuffed rabbit. Gloria's smile, John now realized, had never quite reached her eyes. Even then, the hardwood floors creaked beneath his feet as he moved closer to the photo, studying the subtle details he had missed before. The way Gloria positioned herself slightly apart from the rest of them. Her designer watch was prominently displayed, and her posture already suggested the growing distance that would become a chasm. The sharp staccato of heels against hardwood interrupted his contemplation. Gloria swept into the room like a corporate storm. Her charcoal Armani suit was perfectly pressed. She held a tablet in one hand and a premium leather briefcase in the other. The subtle scent of her expensive French perfume filled the air. The permission slip for William's field trip is on the counter. John said in a neutral tone, "It needs your signature." Gloria barely glanced up from her tablet. "Just sign it for me," she said. "You know my schedule is packed." The school specifically requested both parents' signatures for the overnight science camp. She exhaled sharply, her manicured fingers tapping an impatient rhythm on her tablet. "Fine. Where is it?" John retrieved the form and watched as she scrawled her signature without reading a word. Her wedding ring caught the morning light. The same modest diamond he had proposed with before her promotions, before success transformed her into someone he barely recognized. "William's science fair is next week," John added. The school had called again, hoping both parents could attend. Gloria's tone dripped with condescension. Another riveting evening of baking soda volcanoes and papier-mâché solar systems. "Sorry, but I have a board meeting that day. Some of us have actual responsibilities beyond school functions." The casual dismissal of their son's achievements sent a familiar surge of anger through John's chest. Our children's accomplishments are responsibilities, and being present matters, he thought. Gloria finally looked up, her perfectly lined eyes narrowing. "You mean like being present for the mortgage payments, the private school tuition, and extracurricular activities? You're so fond of scheduling." She gestured around their well-appointed living room. "Someone has to think bigger than science fairs and little league games." The sound of children's footsteps overhead made John lower his voice. "Money isn't everything," he said softly. "William asked about you at dinner again last night. You missed his baseball game last weekend." Gloria snapped. "I was closing the Anderson merger. Do you have any idea what that means for the company? For my career?" Her lips curled into a familiar smirk. "Of course you don't. You're content pushing papers at your little office, playing it safe, while I actually build something meaningful. There's nothing meaningless about providing stability for our family," John replied, his hands clenched at his sides. "Not everyone needs a corner office and a six-figure bonus to find fulfillment." Gloria's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. "Fulfillment? Is that what you call it? Living in my shadow, being the dutiful husband who picks up the slack while I actually succeed," she said, straightening her blazer, a gesture that had become her armor. "You know what your problem is, John. You're afraid. Afraid to take risks, afraid to reach higher. It's pathetic, really. You're so focused on being the perfect father that you've forgotten how to be anything else." The sound of footsteps on the stairs made them both turn. William appeared in the doorway with his backpack slung over one shoulder, his dark hair reminding John of his own younger days. The boy's eyes, still bright with hope, fixed on his mother. "Mom, did you sign my permission slip? And are you really coming to the science fair next week?" Gloria's expression shifted with practiced ease. A camera-ready smile replaced her sneer. "The permission slip is signed, sweetie, but Mommy has an important board meeting during the science fair." You understand, don't you? These meetings determine the future of the company. William's shoulders slumped slightly, though he tried to hide it. Yeah, I understand. Dad will be there. Right. Of course I will, John assured him, watching the familiar dance of disappointment across his son's face. Every minute. Oh, William nodded, his attempt at maturity breaking John's heart. Emma was ready. She was just getting her shoes on. As if summoned by her name, she bounded down the stairs, her blonde pigtails bouncing with each step. She clutched a piece of paper in her small hands, her eyes bright with excitement. Mommy, look. I drew our family in art class yesterday. See, that's you in your work clothes, Daddy with his coffee mug, William playing baseball, and me with Mr. Whiskers. She thrust the drawing toward Gloria, pride radiating from every pore. Gloria barely glanced at the artwork. Not now, honey. Mommy's running late for a critical meeting. John, make sure they do their homework tonight. I have a dinner meeting with the board members. Another late night. John asked, already knowing the answer but wanting the children to hear it. Gloria paused at the door, her hand on the handle. Some of us have priorities beyond domestic bliss. The Anderson merger won't close itself, she said. With that, she was gone, leaving behind the lingering scent of her perfume and the heavy silence of her absence. Emma's small voice broke the quiet. Daddy, don't you want to see my drawing? John knelt down and took the slightly crumpled paper from her hands. Of course I do, sweetheart. Tell me all about it. As Emma launched into a detailed explanation of her artistic choices, John caught William's eye. The boy gave him a small, understanding smile that said, "We know how this goes." After dropping the children at school, John sat in his parked car for a long moment, replaying the morning's events. The weight of Emma's drawing pressed against his chest as he carefully tucked it into his shirt pocket. The crayon family smiled up at him. His phone buzzed with a text from Andrew. Missed you at the gym yesterday. Drinks tonight. Need to talk. John stared at the message, an unsettling feeling creeping up his spine. Andrew, his best friend since college, had been acting increasingly strange over the past few months. Their weekly basketball games had become sporadic, and their conversations stilted. The easy camaraderie built over 15 years had been replaced by something else. Often he typed back a non-committal, maybe. Let me check at home first. The response was immediate. Come on, man. Important. At my office. John went through the motions of his workday. As a senior project manager at a construction firm, his job required attention to detail and careful planning, skills Gloria dismissed as playing it safe. Yet these same skills had kept their family stable through her early career struggles and the lean years before her meteoric rise to executive status. Hey, John, his assistant Sarah poked her head in. The contractors for the Riverside development need the updated permits. He nodded gratefully for the distraction. Thanks, Sarah. I'll handle it now. The afternoon passed in a blur of meetings and phone calls. Around 3, his phone lit up with a text from Gloria. Dope, wait up. Late meeting with Anderson team. John checked his watch. Gloria's company, Preston and Hayes Financial, was 20 minutes from their house, the same building where Andrew had recently taken a position in the legal department, a coincidence that had seemed fortunate at the time. After ensuring all critical tasks were handled, John drove to William's baseball practice. He sat in the bleachers, watching his son's determined face as he practiced pitching. Other parents clustered nearby, chatting about upcoming games and school events. Normal parents doing normal things. Dad, William jogged over during a break. Coach says my curveball is getting better. John handed him a water bottle. Looking good out there, champ. Keep your shoulder level like we practiced. Mom's missing the science fair, isn't she? William's question came out of nowhere, though John knew it had been waiting on him. She has an important meeting, John replied carefully. She always has important meetings. William's voice carried a resignation that made him sound far older than 12. Sometimes I think she doesn't even like us anymore. John's heart clenched. Your mother loves you and Emma very much. She's just focused on her career right now. William took another sip of water. Like when she missed my birthday party for that conference, or Emma's dance recital for the quarterly review. Before John could respond, the coach called the team back to practice. William jogged away, leaving his father to wrestle with the raw truth in his words at home that evening. After helping Emma with her math homework and reviewing William's science project, John sat in his home office. The house felt empty despite the children sleeping upstairs. Gloria's absence had become more presence than void, a tangible reminder of how far they had drifted. His computer screen glowed with open tabs, Gloria's social media profiles, her company's website, and local news articles about the Anderson merger. Nothing seemed suspicious on the surface. Yet something nagged at him, a persistent feeling that he was missing crucial pieces of a larger puzzle. The front door opened and closed downstairs. Heels clicked across hardwood, followed by the sound of ice cubes hitting crystal. John glanced at his watch. Another dinner meeting ran suspiciously late, but he found her in the kitchen, pouring a generous measure of expensive scotch, another recent habit. Her blazer was slightly rumpled, and her lipstick was touched up, but not quite perfect. A faint scent clung to her clothes, different from her usual perfume. "The kids missed you at dinner," John said quietly from the doorway. "Emma wanted to show you her art project." Gloria took a long sip before responding. "I'm not in the mood for your passive-aggressive guilt trips, John. The Anderson merger is crucial for the firm." "Is that what we're calling it now? The Anderson merger?" The words escaped before he could stop them. Heavy with implication, she turned to face him, her eyes glittering dangerously. "What exactly are you implying?" John demanded. "You tell me, Gloria." John stepped into the kitchen. "The late nights, the secret phone calls, the way you guard your phone as if it contains state secrets," he said, moving closer to watch her reaction. "And the convenient coincidence of Andrew's new position at your firm," he added. Gloria's laugh held no warmth. "Oh, this is rich. The dutiful husband finally grows a backbone. Tell me, John, did you spend all day building these little theories instead of pushing papers? Answer the question, Gloria. What's really going on with these late nights?" She set her glass down with deliberate care. "You want answers? Fine. I've outgrown this domestic prison. Every day I walk into that office, I'm reminded of what real success looks like and what real passion feels like." Her lips curled into a cruel smile. "While you're here playing house, I'm building an empire." "An empire?" John asked, his voice steady despite the rage building in his chest. "Is that what you call betraying your family?" "Betraying?" Gloria stepped closer. "Let me tell you something about betrayal, John. The real betrayal is settling for mediocrity when you're capable of so much more. The real betrayal is watching your spouse refuse to grow and reach higher. And the children, don't you dare use them as shields," she snapped. "They'll understand someday. Understand that their mother refused to be caged by suburban monotony." John studied her face, the face he'd loved for 15 years, the face that had smiled at him across the altar and beamed with joy at their children's births. Now it was a stranger's face twisted with contempt. "You want truth, John. Here's your truth," Gloria declared, squaring her shoulders, every inch the corporate executive delivering bad news. "I'm not your property. I'm opening our marriage, whether you want it or not," she stated. The words hung in the air like poison. "What?" John asked. "You heard me," she replied with a cruel, confident smile. "I'm a successful, powerful woman. I deserve to experience everything life has to offer. If you can't handle that, it's your problem, not mine." The pieces clicked in place with sickening clarity. The late nights, Andrew's strange behavior, the lingering scent of an unfamiliar perfume. "It's Andrew, isn't it?" John said, his voice dangerously quiet. "My best friend, the man who stood as my best man at our wedding." Gloria's slight widening of her eyes confirmed it before she could compose herself. "You're being paranoid. How long? John asked, the words feeling like glass in his throat. How long have you been sleeping with my best friend? He demanded. Does it matter? Gloria replied with a hollow laugh, echoing off the granite countertops. You're so concerned with appearances, with being the perfect father and husband. It's suffocating. Andrew understands ambition, understands passion. When was the last time you took a risk, John? When was the last time you did anything that wasn't safe and predictable? We have children. John's voice shook with controlled fury. A family. Does that mean nothing to you? Oh, please, Gloria retorted, rolling her eyes as she reached for her glass. Don't act so shocked. This isn't the 1950s. Modern marriages evolve. Adapt. But you wouldn't understand that, would you? You're too busy clinging to outdated ideals of loyalty and commitment. Blood roared in John's ears. Images flashed through his mind. William's resigned smile at baseball practice. Emma's crumpled drawing. Andrew laughing at dinner countless times. You're right about one thing, he said, his voice deadly calm. I am loyal to our children, to my principles, and I won't let you destroy this family with your selfish choices. Gloria laughed again, a sharp, mocking sound. Let me. You don't let me do anything, John. I make my own choices, and right now, I'm choosing to live life on my terms. If you can't handle that, well, she shrugged as she reached for the scotch bottle. That's why divorce lawyers exist. If that's what you want, John said, his eyes never leaving her face, then you'll get it. But don't think for a second I'll roll over and let you destroy our children's lives with your selfishness. Gloria scoffed, her artificial confidence masking a flicker of uncertainty. No judge will, she declared. We'll see about that. John turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Tell Andrew he can expect a call from me. He added, best friends shouldn't keep secrets. After all, he left her standing in the kitchen, her perfect facade finally showing cracks upstairs. He checked on the children. Emma slept clutching her stuffed rabbit, while William's baseball glove lay next to his pillow. They looked peaceful, unaware of the coming change. In his office, John began his research. Divorce lawyers, custody precedents, financial records. He would leave no stone unturned. Gloria had underestimated him and dismissed him as weak and predictable. She had forgotten that a man protecting his children is capable of anything. The next few days blurred by in careful investigation and quiet rage. John maintained his routine for the children's sake: breakfast, homework, and William's practices. But beneath the surface, he was gathering evidence and building a case. Gloria barely came home, not even bothering to hide her absences anymore. When she did appear, it was only to grab fresh clothes or bark orders about household matters. She seemed to revel in her newfound freedom. Each casual display of disrespect was another nail in their marriage's coffin. Then came the video late one night. As John sat in his office following another digital trail, an anonymous email arrived. The subject line made his blood run cold. Your wife's true colors. The sender's address was unfamiliar, masked behind proxy servers and fake domains. John's cursor hovered over the attached link. His security training screamed warnings about unknown attachments, but something in the subject's phrasing nagged at him. With trembling hands, he clicked the link. It led to a hidden video hosting site, displaying a single thumbnail titled, Cheating Wife Becomes Public Property. His mouse hesitated before he hit play. The footage was unmistakable. Gloria and Andrew were captured in intimate moments that would destroy both their reputations if made public. The video quality was high, clearly shot recently in what appeared to be a high-end hotel room. John recognized Gloria's expensive watch, his anniversary gift from 2 years ago. The betrayal played out in high definition, each moment a dagger to his heart. But beneath the personal pain, John's analytical mind began to work. This was evidence, undeniable proof of infidelity, reckless behavior, and poor judgment. the kind of evidence that could sway a custody hearing. John sat back in his chair, a strange calm settling over him. Gloria had always underestimated him, dismissed him as weak, predictable, safe. She had never understood that his strength came from his principles and dedication to family. She mistook his stability for weakness, his loyalty for limitation. The sound of a car and a door closing outside drew his attention. Through the office window, he watched Gloria step out of a taxi, her movements slightly unsteady. After another late night at the office, she fumbled with her keys at the front door. The sound of her uneven heels on the porch made John turn back to his computer. He methodically downloaded and secured the video evidence, creating multiple backups stored in secure cloud locations under encrypted files. Gloria might think him technologically inept, but years of project management had taught him the value of careful documentation. His phone buzzed with another text from Andrew. "Need to talk. It's important." John stared at the message, imagining his former best friend's face. The man who had been his best man, helped him move into this house, and taught William how to hold a baseball bat. Now he starred in an explicit video with his wife. Instead of responding, John opened his contacts and began making calls, first to Robert Hayes, a divorce attorney known for high-profile cases with discretion. Then to Michael Chun, a digital forensics expert he had worked with on a construction fraud case last year. The pieces were falling into place. While Gloria played at being a corporate power player and dismissed him as boring and predictable, John had been building his own network of professionals. These were people who understood the value of loyalty and the importance of documentation. He heard Gloria stumble into their bedroom, soon to be his alone. The children slept peacefully, unaware of the storm gathering around their family. John vowed they would stay that way, protected from their mother's selfish destruction. He began composing emails, setting meetings, and laying the groundwork for what was to come. Gloria thought she held all the power with her executive salary and connections. She was about to learn that real power came from preparation, patience, and the quiet strength she had always mocked. The video evidence was just the beginning. John had spent years watching Gloria's rise to power, learning her patterns and understanding her weaknesses. She thought, "I'm blind," but he had seen everything. Every late-night meeting, every suspicious text, every subtle sign of her betrayal. Now it was time to show Gloria exactly what happens when you betray not just your spouse, but an entire family. The war was about to begin, and John intended to win. Not for himself, but for William and Emma, for their future, and for their right to grow up knowing that loyalty and integrity matter more than power and prestige. John closed his laptop. In a few hours, he would wake the children, make their breakfast, pack their lunches. Domestic tasks Gloria scorned. But beneath that routine, a storm was brewing. The dutiful husband was gone, replaced by a father determined to protect his children at any cost. The war for his family's future was about to begin, and Gloria had no idea what was coming. The morning sun cast long shadows across the courthouse steps as John adjusted his tie, smoothing the silk with practiced care. Richard, his attorney, stood beside him, reviewing their documentation one final time. Richard said quietly, "The video evidence has been authenticated. We also have bank records showing room charges at the Mason Heights Hotel, coded as business meetings on our corporate card, and the children's school attendance logs. These logs show who actually attended parent-teacher conferences, medical appointments, and sports events. The paper trail tells quite a story." The sharp click of heels against marble made them both turn. Gloria approached with her attorney Patricia, her entire appearance calculated for maximum effect. Gone was the arrogant executive who dismissed their marriage as beneath her. Today she wore a conservative navy suit, her makeup subtle, her hairstyle designed to project maternal warmth. The transformation might have been impressive if John hadn't spent 15 years watching her perfect the art of manipulation. Gloria, her voice dripping with manufactured concern, said, "It's not too late to handle this privately. Think about what this publicity will do to William and Emma." Now you're worried about the children. John's voice cut like a blade. Convenient timing. Patricia stepped forward, her expression professionally neutral. My client is prepared to be extremely generous in the settlement. Joint custody, substantial child support. Richard interrupted. Your client seems to be operating under the delusion that she still holds the upper hand. Gloria's perfect eyebrows drew together. What exactly are you implying? Mrs. Parker, Richard's smile held no warmth. Let's just say the court will find today's evidence illuminating. Before Gloria could respond, the court officer emerged. Parker versus Parker, Judge Elizabeth presiding. All parties, please enter. The courtroom's oak-paneled walls seemed to absorb the tension as they filed in. John noted how Gloria positioned herself to face the judge's bench, another calculated performance. In the gallery, he caught sight of Andrew slipping into the back row, trying to blend into the background. His former best friend looked haunted. Judge Elizabeth entered in robes flowing as she took her seat, her eyes sharp with decades of experience. She scanned the courtroom before focusing on the documents. Before we begin these proceedings, I want to establish several points. First, this court's primary concern is the well-being of the minor children involved. Second, any attempt to use these children as leverage will be met with severe consequences. An 8-year-old should not have to express her pain through drawings of an absent mother. Yes, Your Honor, both attorneys responded in unison. Patricia rose first, her movements smooth and practiced. Your Honor, my client is a devoted mother who has provided an exceptional standard of living for her children. Her success in the corporate world should be viewed as an asset, not a liability. Mrs. Parker has ensured her children want for nothing, attending the finest schools and enjoying every advantage. Objection. Richard's voice cut through the rhetoric. Counsel is attempting to equate financial provision with parental fitness. Sustained, Judge Elizabeth stated. Please focus on relevant parental qualifications. Patricia adjusted her approach. Your Honor, we have documentation showing my client's consistent financial support and involvement in selecting the best educational opportunities. If I may. Richard stood. We have evidence demonstrating that Mrs. Parker's involvement in her children's lives has been limited to financial transactions and occasional appearances when it suited her schedule. He continued, moreover, we have compelling evidence of behavior that directly questions her fitness as a primary caregiver. Your Honor, I'd like to call our first witness, Mary, the children's psychologist. Mary approached the witness stand, her professional demeanor commanding attention. After being sworn in, she settled into the chair, meeting the judge's gaze with quiet confidence. Dr. Mary, please share your observations regarding the Parker children. Richard began. Over the past 6 months, I've conducted weekly sessions with both William and Emma Parker. William, age 12, displays concerning patterns of parentification, taking on adult responsibilities beyond his years. He frequently mentioned being responsible for his sister's emotional well-being during their mother's absences. Gloria shifted in her seat, her perfectly manicured nails drumming silently on the table. Could you elaborate on these absences? Richard prompted. William described numerous missed events. Baseball games, science fairs, parent-teacher conferences. When asked about his mother's availability, he quoted her saying, "Board meetings matter more than baseball games." The emotional impact of such dismissals is significant. Objection. Patricia stood. Hearsay. Your Honor, Dr. Mary is testifying to direct observations and statements made during therapeutic sessions, which fall under professional observation exceptions, Richard argued. Overruled, Judge Elizabeth stated. Continue. Dr. Mary continued, her professional tone making the observations even more damning. In one particularly telling session, Emma created a family scene where the mother figure was represented by a paper doll, facing away from the family. When asked about this choice, Emma said, "Mommy's always looking at her phone or talking about important people who aren't us." John watched Gloria's face as each word struck home. Her carefully constructed mask began to slip, showing cracks in her composed facade. Dr. Mary, in your professional opinion, how has Mrs. Parker's behavior affected the children's emotional development? Richard asked. Both children exhibit signs of attachment insecurity and emotional neglect. William has developed inappropriate caretaking behaviors, sacrificing his own childhood needs, and Emma shows regression in social skills with increasing anxiety about abandonment, Dr. Mary replied. Dr. Mary, couldn't these behaviors simply indicate normal adjustment difficulties for having a working mother? Patricia pressed. The issues go far beyond normal adjustment. Many children have working parents without this level of emotional distress. The concern is not Mrs. Parker's career. It's her pattern of prioritizing personal gratification over her children's emotional needs, Dr. Mary stated firmly. Isn't it possible that you're interpreting normal childhood behaviors through an overly critical lens? Patricia questioned. I have 15 years of experience working with children of divorced parents, Dr. Mary countered. The Parker children's distress patterns are consistent with emotional neglect and abandonment anxiety. Emma's recent art therapy sessions show increasing use of dark colors and isolated figures, while William's assessments indicate elevated stress levels far beyond the normal range. The testimony continued, each detail building a damning picture of Gloria's maternal neglect. John noticed Andrew shifting uncomfortably as Mary described how the children had begun picking up on their mother's secret phone calls and special meetings. After Mary's testimony, Richard called William's baseball coach, Michael, to the stand. Mr. Michael, how long have you been coaching William Parker? 3 years now, Michael replied, adjusting his collar. He's one of my most dedicated players. Could you describe the parental involvement you've observed? Richard asked. Michael nodded, glancing briefly at John. Mr. Parker hasn't missed a single game or practice unless there was a serious work commitment. Even then, he makes sure William has support. Mrs. Parker, he paused. I've seen her exactly twice in 3 years. Could you tell us about William's championship game last season? Richard inquired. Michael's voice grew stern. It was William's first time pitching in a championship. He practiced for weeks. Mr. Parker arranged with work to be there early and helped set up the field. Mrs. Parker promised she would come, but William kept looking at the stands between innings. She never showed. Did she explain her absence? Richard asked. She sent a text during the 7th inning saying some client meeting ran long. Michael replied with clear disapproval. William pitched a complete game shutout that day. His mother missed it for a dinner meeting, he added. Patricia objected. Objection, Your Honor. One missed game hardly constitutes. Please respond only to questions asked. Mr. Michael, Judge Elizabeth admonished. Richard produced a document. Your Honor, I have William's complete game and practice schedule with annotated parental attendance records. They paint a clear pattern. As evidence mounted, Richard called Emma's art teacher, Laura, to the stand. Mrs. Laura, please describe Emma's recent artwork, he asked. Laura lifted several drawings. These are from the past 6 months. You can see a clear progression. She held up a piece from September, a family portrait with all members connected and smiling. By November, she presented another drawing. Emma began drawing her mother separately from the family group, often with a phone or computer between them. The artwork progression continued, each piece telling its own story of growing emotional distance. Gloria sat rigid, watching her maternal neglect documented in crayon and marker. The most concerning piece, Laura concluded while holding up a recent drawing, shows the family home with Emma, William, and their father inside, while the mother figure stands outside, turned away. Emma titled it, Mommy's Important Meeting. During a brief recess, John overheard Gloria hissing at her attorney. This is character assassination. Why aren't you objecting more? Patricia responded quietly. Because every objection draws more attention to evidence we'd rather downplay. The video hasn't even been presented yet. The mention of the video made Gloria fall silent, her face paling slightly. Andrew, who had been listening nearby, quickly left the courtroom, his steps unsteady. When court resumed, Richard addressed the judge. "Your Honor, while we have additional character witnesses prepared to testify, I believe it's time to present our key evidence regarding Mrs. Parker's specific behaviors that render her unfit for primary custody." Judge Elizabeth nodded. "Proceed," she said. Richard continued, "Your Honor, I object to any video evidence. This is a violation of privacy." Gloria protested. "Mrs. Parker." Judge Elizabeth interrupted. "Your attorney should make objections on your behalf. And as this video was already publicly available online, privacy concerns are moot." As the video screen was prepared, Richard detailed the evidence's origin. This video, titled "Cheating Wife Becomes Public Property," was posted on multiple platforms. It shows Mrs. Parker and Mr. Andrew engaged in intimate activities in the Mason Heights Hotel, activities charged to her corporate account as business meetings. Gloria's face drained of color. In the gallery, Andrew slumped lower in his seat. Additionally, Richard added, "Metadata from the video confirms it was taken during William's school science fair, an event Mrs. Parker claimed she missed due to a critical board meeting." Judge Elizabeth watched the first minute of footage before raising her hand. "I've seen enough. The full video will be entered into evidence, but need not be played in open court." Patricia rose desperately. "While my client acknowledges certain indiscretions, they have no bearing on her parental capabilities." "No bearing," Richard said, his voice carrying controlled anger. "Your Honor, Mrs. Parker didn't just commit infidelity. She flaunted it, recorded it, and risked exposing our children to this evidence. Her recklessness demonstrates severely impaired judgment." Judge Elizabeth turned to Gloria. "Mrs. Parker, would you like to make a statement regarding these events?" Gloria stood, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. "Your Honor, I admit to errors in judgment, but I'm a successful executive who has provided my children with every advantage. They have the best schools and the finest opportunities." "Mrs. Parker," the judge interrupted, "I've heard extensive testimony about what your children have. I'm more concerned with what they lack: stability, emotional support, a mother who prioritizes their needs over personal gratification. I love my children. Love without action is meaningless in this court. The evidence shows a pattern of neglect masked by financial provision. Money is not a substitute for parenting." The judge reviewed her notes before continuing. "This court has considered all evidence, including character testimonies and the children's statements. The video evidence, while salacious, is less concerning than the pattern of emotional neglect it represents." Mrs. Parker's choice to engage in such behavior during her child's school event speaks volumes about her priorities, the judge stated. Gloria gripped the table, her knuckles white. John sat perfectly still, watching years of his wife's carefully constructed facade crumble. Furthermore, Judge Elizabeth continued, "The testimony regarding the children's emotional state is particularly troubling. A 12-year-old should not feel responsible for protecting his younger sister from maternal abandonment. An 8-year-old should not have to express her pain through drawings of an absent mother." The judge's gavel cracked like thunder in the silent courtroom. "This court grants full custody to John Parker. Mrs. Parker's visitation rights are restricted to supervised visits pending completion of parenting classes and counseling. Mr. Parker will have sole discretion over visitation scheduling." "No." Gloria's composure shattered completely. "You can't do this. I'm their mother." "Mrs. Parker," Judge Elizabeth said firmly, "one more word and you'll be held in contempt. This court's decision is final." The aftermath exploded in chaos. Gloria lunged toward John, her carefully crafted image of maternal concern forgotten. "You planned this. You orchestrated everything." "Step back, Mrs. Parker," Richard warned as he moved between them. "You're nothing without me." Gloria's voice echoed through the courthouse, a pathetic paper pusher who can't handle a strong woman's success. Andrew attempted to approach, his face ashen. "John, please let me explain." John called quietly, "Officer, this man is not authorized to approach me." As Andrew was escorted away, John gathered his documents. The day's drama would hit the news soon. A corporate executive's public disgrace, complete with video evidence and courtroom theatrics. Outside, reporters had already gathered, drawn by the commotion. Camera flashes captured Gloria's tears, Andrew's hasty exit, and John's composed departure. Tomorrow's headlines would write themselves. The fallout hit like a tsunami. By evening, local news stations ran the story. Corporate executive loses custody after scandal. Preston and Hayes' financial stock took an immediate hit as shareholders reacted to their CEO's public disgrace. John watched the coverage while sorting through emails. His phone buzzed constantly. One message read, "John, please, I can't make rent. Just a small loan." Another said, "Your children's mother is sleeping in her car." He blocked each number without hesitation. 15 years of friendship meant nothing compared to 15 years of betrayal. The landline rang with Gloria's mother's desperate plea. "John, please be reasonable. Gloria is still their mother. She's devastated." He let it go to voicemail and deleted the message mid-sentence. Upstairs, William sat on his bed, gripping his baseball mitt. "Dad, is it true what they're saying on TV about Mom?" William asked. John sat beside his son, choosing his words carefully. "Your mother made choices that hurt our family. The court decided you and Emma would be better off living with me full-time. She didn't even fight for us, did she?" William's voice cracked. "Not really. She was more worried about her reputation. A burden to carry, not yours," John replied. A small voice came from the doorway. Emma stood in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Is Mommy in trouble?" John opened his arms, and she ran to him. "Mommy has to deal with the consequences of her choices. But you and William, you are safe and you're loved. That's all you need to worry about." Days blurred into weeks. John established new routines. Breakfast together every morning, homework checks after school, and family dinners without phones or distractions. Simple things. Gloria had always considered the children's rooms beneath her, filled with evidence of healing. Emma's artwork now featured brighter colors, and William's baseball trophies were displayed proudly. Their home felt lighter, as if Gloria's absence had lifted a shadow. Then came the attempts at contact. First, Gloria appeared at William's baseball game, designer sunglasses hiding red eyes. Security escorted her out before she could approach the children. She tried at Emma's school next, sending expensive gifts to the office, which John donated to charity. Her emails grew increasingly desperate. "You can't keep my children from me. I'll hire better lawyers. Everything I did was for this family. My therapist says I'm making progress." Each message went straight to a special folder for Richard to review. One evening, John's intercom buzzed. The security guard's voice crackled. "Mr. Parker, Mrs. Parker is here demanding entry. Says it's an emergency," through the security camera. He watched Gloria arguing with the guard. Her channel suit was wrinkled, her hair disheveled. The corporate armor was cracking. "No entry," John replied. "Reminder, all contact must go through our lawyers." The next day, a courier delivered a handwritten letter. "Dear William and Emma, Mommy misses you so much. I know I made mistakes, but I'm still your mother. Please ask Daddy to let me see you." The letter joined the others in Richard's file. 3 months after the court decision, Thomas from Preston and Hayes called. "John, I thought you should know Gloria has been asked to resign. The board cited moral clause violations," he said. "And Andrew's gone." John replied, ending the call. The children showed steady improvement. Mary reported that Emma's artwork now featured a happy family of 3, and William's baseball coach praised his renewed focus. Then came the storm. Rain lashed against the windows as John helped Emma with reading and William practiced pitching in the garage. Unexpectedly, through the security camera, he saw Gloria. Mascara streaked by rain, designer clothes soaked and muddy. Her fist hammered against the door. "John, please. The children. They need to understand. I've lost everything. My job, my reputation. Just let me explain, she pleaded. Emma's voice quavered. Daddy, is that Mommy? John called. Go to your room, sweetheart. Both of you, upstairs now. The pounding continued. I know you're in there. You can't keep them from me forever. I'm their mother. John activated the intercom. Gloria, you're violating the court order. Leave now or I will call the police. Her voice broke. Please, I'll do anything. The parenting classes, therapy, whatever you want. Just let me see them. Goodbye, Gloria. He shut off the intercom, ignoring her escalating cries. Through the window, he watched her sink to her knees on the porch, rain mixing with tears. William appeared at the top of the stairs. She's not coming back, is she? John answered truthfully. No, she's not. That night, he held his children as they processed their mother's display. Where once he might have felt pity, now he felt only cold satisfaction. Gloria had built her prison of consequences. Brick by brick. Let her live in it. The morning's final image remained. The mighty Gloria Parker, stumbling out of the building she once ruled, was a shadow of her former self. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.